be covering the new version 9.3. It's a new major release. So as Tracy mentioned, I'm not going to actually demo anything in particular. I just wanted to go through the main highlights, and I've picked some of the of my favorite features, and we'll go through them kind of one at a time and talk about the benefits of them so that you can see. So there is part of this presentation is based on a PDF, and so this PDF here kind of has everything in it with a little bit more detail. So I'll get Tracy to forward that to everybody who attends, and you can check it out as you go. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail and talk about some of the context behind some of the highlights of what we're going to see in 9.3. So really excited.
Mike,
There's
just
lots
a
of cool
sec.
stuff.
Just a sec. So you're going to send me this so that I can share it with anybody. If
Yep.
anybody does want this, send me an email because I don't necessarily have everybody's email on those that are present. So just
Okay.
send me a quick email. Mike will show it to you later.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So yeah. So that PDF it'll be available along with the recording. So also just as a note, I have not necessarily had a chance to play with all of these individual features. So if you do have questions, I just put it on my machine. It is in ramp up right now. The ramp up process means SAP allows customers to use it, but they have to be nominated by a consultant. So it would be like I could say, well, I'll nominate you with SAP for ramp up. And basically SAP determines whether you're a good fit or a good candidate for it. So if you have a lot of add-ons or a lot of customization, or you're a larger customer with more users, you're not really a good candidate for ramp up. But potentially you could get access to this a little bit earlier than kind of Q2 or spring, what they're estimating. They're still stabilizing it. It appears very stable on my system so far. But there might be little things to work out. So if you really, really need one of these features, we might be able to work it out. But I'm going to start with my picks and overview of 9.3. So, I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure things which are not as exciting, especially for users. They're interesting for us consultants because they make our lives a little bit easier. But this is kind of the overview of what you're going to see. Again, you can go through the PDF and look at each one of them individually. I'm not going to highlight every single one because it doesn't make for a good webinar. So that's one, and this is two. So you could see some that are specific to HANA. So if there's any HANA specific users, you have kind of improvements to the analytics portal and certain new cockpit templates and things like that. But most of these are available to all users of SAP Business One, SQL, and HANA equally. So these are my picks of what I think are going to be the most impactful, and this is what I'm going to cover and give a little bit more context around. Some of them I have played with or looked at. Some of them I have just maybe watched the feature clips and kind of checked them out on the PDF I was referring to. Okay, so, and I've also I've organized these in kind of order of excitement. So if it'll start out a little slow, but then the last ones, kind of getting down to the big ones that are, very excited about. So I'm excited about all these, but I've organized them kind of in a crescendo fashion. So, so authorization simplification, user groups historically are kind of like split up into separate areas, and they've streamlined it a little bit. So now you can have kind of a CRM group that's assigned both form settings and authorization settings. It is really nice to be able to simplify that because new users, it isn't necessarily a simple process for somebody to add them. But if you have like a similar user and you're adding another person to SAP, then now basically we would just install the license for you, and then you can make the new user, assign them to an existing group, and away you go. They have the authorizations, and they'll also have the form settings. Another thing that's could be useful for you too is temporary authorization. So you could set authorizations to expire. So if you had an intern situation or you had somebody doing temporary work, You can set their authorizations to change or to be deactivated at a certain date. So that's something that might be useful for you as well. My settings is really a neat way of centralizing the individual user's control over their settings. So you can see there's a little icon now. So the individual user now has control over their specific experience. I don't, it's not necessarily the best features that they're showing on these screens here. So I added a little extra one here of what it actually looks like. I think the services portion of this in the tab will be the most useful. Previously, you would have to go and either set this all, using a query or something. I mean, the screen locking time, we don't do queries on the checkboxes or anything. Now you can set it user by user. A user can choose to not get the exchange rate table when they log in, or they can choose to display recurring postings. Again, sometimes it's really applicable to people, sometimes it's very not applicable, and now it's in the user's ability to control it if you want them to do that. Approval procedures, if you've used approval procedures before, you would recognize that they are quite rigid. They do exactly what they need to be able to do, but if you now use them with 9.3, you can edit drafts that are in the pending approval process, and you can also update documents that have been added by the approval process. So it isn't like they're approved and then locked. Now you can actually edit existing approved documents, and if it hits the same criteria, it'll be put back in to get re-approved, but previously you couldn't even edit those documents. So it makes a big step up for using the approval procedures. I find a lot of industries, it's too rigid for them to use it, so now it'll give them a little bit of flexibility, but still maintaining that approval process. If you hit that level, again, it'll bring you back to the approval templates. Especially for users or companies that have been using SAP for a long time, the change log cleanup utility, it's similar to the document archiving wizard. You can just clean up some of your old database information. I don't think this is going to lead to a direct day-to-day improvement in speed. It's just not really how SQL works, but it definitely will make the upgrade process quicker, and it will also lead to hopefully smaller database sizes, which is nice because managing giant databases is just difficult in general, especially when they get gigantic. If you've been using them since 2005, you could have a lot of, you want to see if Mike Taylor in 2006 updated an invoice, you can just kind of strip that out. They've done some CRM enhancements. Mostly they've kind of centralized the CRM module, so they're going to have, just the wording of CRM, I think, makes it easier for certain people to understand what the module does, whereas opportunities, it makes sense once you're familiar with it. It doesn't necessarily, it's not in context as clear as calling it the CRM module. So they've pulled together a few different things in there, and they've just made it a little bit easier for users to understand.
Mike,
Yes.
the question on that on the CRM, so basically what it is, like if I'm in the CRM and you see the opportunity, it's the same opportunity as if I go through opportunity. They've just centralized everything that would have to do with the CRM, right?
Yeah, exactly. My understanding is like they have left the opportunities module exactly how it is for users who are already using it and who are already happy with it. So they didn't like phase out the opportunities, but for sure you could just hide that in your form settings. If you've never used opportunities and you're just new to the system and you just want to see CRM, or you're just new to kind of doing some of the CRM functions, I think you but the opportunity you see there is exactly like you said, the opportunity.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Another CRM enhancement is you can send activities to a group of people now, or a specific list. So if you have, you want somebody on the sales team to make you a quote, or if you have somebody on a service team that you need to get in contact with somebody, or something like that, maybe you need a technical resource assistance on a quote, you can now do an activity internally and assign it to a group of people, which is nice. It's a little bit more efficient rather than having to like pick somebody on a specific team. You can say here team, do this particular task. All right, GL account determination matrix. Finally, we get UDFs involved in this. So if you've used the advanced GL account determination, it's been a very, very good feature, and something that's really critical for doing, doing specific scenarios, automating specific financial scenarios, specifically, like P&L stuff. You can split up, Canadian and US revenues and things like that automatically. But now you can use a UDF and define it exactly how you want, giving you even more options. So you can see there's all empty filled or enter value. And so you can use UDFs directly on the document row, the document header, the business partner, or the item. So this adds an incredible amount of flexibility to automating your GL account determinations, and I think this is a fantastic new system that they've added there. So that actually the advanced GL account determination is not new, but including the UDFs is new. Previously, you had to repurpose one of the existing system fields, and sometimes that was a little tricky with the data types and everything. So now you can do it exactly how you want. Production routing. So, I mean, this is something that we've been looking for a while. It is not a replacement for Processforce or something like of that nature. It is not going to replace, if you have a very complex system with overlays and various different things, it's not going to replace that. But for a simple, discrete manufacturer who maybe does kind of step 1, step 2, in order, this will really help you out with the default system. So you could do stage 1, you can complete stage 1 and issue and backflush stage 1, and then you can send everything to stage 2. Stage 2 can be worked on, then you can issue and backflush to stage 2, so on and so forth. And there's some capacity planning, and there's a lot more details on this. Again, we're going to cover much more of this in the detailed webinars. We're going to do 3 webinars just before this is generally available, and we're really going to touch more on the specifics of this, and you can ask much more specific questions, and we'll do a demo on that, so keep that in mind. Units of measure. This is very, very exciting. I don't know, mostly for me, but from the point of view of the customer, this unit of measure enhancement, the entire thing has been improved. So previously, if you've been trying to use a unit of measure group and you define the lowest level of unit of measure, say as each, you had to do certain things as each. So you'd have to show your inventory as each unit. So say you commonly buy in box and you normally sell in box, but once in a while you sell some eaches, or maybe you're flexible with that. Now you can set the unit of measure group to each, but you can define box still as the inventory unit, and you can do box as the count unit, or you can do, say, each as the count unit, and then box as the inventory unit. So when you look in your inventory tab, you'll see 20, and you'll know that's 20 boxes, but you could also add that to a sales document, switch the unit of measure to each, have a price defined for that, and then sell it as each individual unit. You can also see up at the top there's the purple box that says pricing unit. It's just a little bit blurry, but you can actually store it and inventory it as, say, a box, and then you can set the pricing unit by each. So maybe you only ship in full boxes. It is actually really flexible, and I have tested this one quite a bit. So you can sell in eaches, but then you can see in the inventory unit of measure how many boxes you're shipping, or you could, say, automatically try to round that up to the nearest box, still pricing it and showing it as being purchased as units of each. So very flexible and new and exciting. Project management, this one is really a neat improvement. They've done a lot of improvements to the out-of-the-box project management tool with SAP Business One in 9.3. So you're going to see things like this project overview. So they've added some reports that make it a little bit easier to see projects with specifically with sub projects, and also just seeing everything all together kind of in a single report. But the big feature, the big couple of features here are billing specific documents to the customer. So there's a billable checkbox now in AR or AP, in AP documents where you can attach those to these projects and then use the billable document generation wizard to do milestone billing or standard kind of time and materials billing based on projects. So the interface between this and your regular projects has been really improved. So if you had a project, you make some sort of project for a customer, when you do that project, you define a financial project like you would have done before, and you can use that financial project to tag any sort of documents, any sort of thing. And when you go back to the project in the project management section, it's going to prompt you to add those into one of the phases, and then you can use the billable document generation wizard to rebill those costs or things or time that you have incurred. So it kind of like streamlines that process rather than just kind of using the project for information purposes. You can now use it to actually bill, control, and view. There's even a little P&L view of the project, so it's really being built out. It's not a replacement for any one of your bigger project management add-ons, but again, it's for people that do limited projects. It's really good. They've also added a Gantt chart, which is really exciting. It's something that you can view and use again to control your projects. It's not a replacement for Microsoft Project or anything, but definitely if you do kind of limited projects or you're working on something specific, you can use that to track internally, and it just gives you a tool that centralizes everything and allows you to add attachments inside of SAP. You can link any sort of document, you can have tasks in there, you can have stages like you see here, and just manage everything with a central place that everybody using SAP can view. So the big one here, this is the one that everybody has been waiting for, I feel like, is a true RMA process. So return material agreement. Currently we have to use drafts and a bunch of different things like that. And finally we can just eliminate that both on the AR and AP side. So we do not need now to do a return and then save it as a draft, or do like an actual return and then have overstated inventory. They're doing it with what's called a return request. So basically you can do a return request, you can say the reason for the return, and once it arrives, you can have the return action. It is included in your ordered and committed amounts. I'm assuming it's also included in available to promise if it's coming back on a specific date. You can track these, if the customer hasn't sent anything back to you, you can track these way easier than tracking drafts. And again, it just makes it easier because many customers have some sort of RMA process, and this just allows it to be formalized. In addition to that, you can do your RMAs on a service call as well. So you don't have to immediately take back a return. You could do it as a return request as part of the service call. And then when the return request arrives back at the shop, warehouse, et cetera, then you can continue on, inspect that item, copy the return request to a true return, indicate what had happened to it, and then process the credit if that is something that needs to be done. And in the case of service call, then you could potentially send out a replacement part or a replacement unit for that. So again, it just streamlines any, I have a lot of customers that have some sort of RMA process, and this is just something where we can, just make it make sense. And it's, I think, the biggest driver for people to move to 9.3. So thank you very much. Just keep in mind 9.3 is in ramp up right now. So it's not generally available. It is available if you had specific questions and you wanted to ask me or try something we can already show you examples of what is happening with 9.3. So if there's something you're really excited about, but you want to try it out, we can kind of give you that demo, but it's not going to be actually available until Q2-ish, spring sometime. So thank you very much, and I'll pass back to Tracy.
Well, thanks, Mike. Look, if if anybody needs a copy of this, I recorded it. So if you want to share it with some colleagues, just send me a quick email, and I'm going to download it in a few minutes. And thanks, everyone. So we'll see you in 2 weeks when we cover the SAP Portal and Learning Hub. So thanks, Mike. Thanks,
Yep.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye for now.